Alright, looks like we're live. Audio's coming through. So what's up, everybody? This is Terminator Juice, and this is going to be a little bit different of a Juice Opinions. This isn't going to be a random hour and 30-minute, hour and 50 minutes of many topics. I just want to focus on something I've been thinking about all week. And I wasn't going to do a video. It was kind of last minute. Except I was packing up my GameCube controllers because I'm selling my Wavebird and two of my wired controllers tomorrow. And I had watched a review of 3D All-Stars on Mojo Plays, and they mentioned something about the way Mario moves in Sunshine with the Joy-Cons, and like there's basically no walking. I mean, it's just barely tilt it and Mario starts running. It got rid of the precision that the GameCube controller had in the original game. And also I had played Rocket League on the Switch for the first time in over a year. And I first started in handheld mode, and I literally couldn't play the game. I mean, I could play it. I couldn't hit the ball. I couldn't shoot. I couldn't do anything I wanted to do with the Joy-Cons because it's just the poor placement of the buttons and the analog stick. And I just got to thinking about Nintendo controllers in general. And I just wanted to give my thoughts. Now, if I was one of those guys with like a editing background or film school background or video production background, I would have, and some lighting, I would have filmed, something professional here, because I think I wanted, there's a lot of things I would like to point out and do it under proper lighting and, high quality with text and stuff. And I just can't make those kinds of videos. I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the patience, and I don't have the time I want to put towards doing stuff like that. And I did forget my Wii U Pro controller, which I need to grab. So let me do that real quick. I'll be right back. Can't believe I forgot about the Wii U. Oh, poor Wii U. Always gets forgotten. Alright, so let me see. I see got one person watching. Appreciate that. This was going to be more of a video for the upload. I don't plan on doing a whole lot of interaction, but we'll see. We'll see what kind of comments and if anybody has questions or wants to add to points I'm making. So basically, let's just get right in. If my cat wants to be curious all of a sudden, I got cords hanging. I got shit she wants to get into. But yeah. So basically, I'm gonna run down each generation of Nintendo controller and talk about, what I feel are the strong points, or yeah, we've never forgotten. The best parts of a controller, things it does great in my opinion, things that are, okay, and then some of its shortcomings. And what I kind of realized is that Nintendo always has at least, god damn it, no, that hurt, didn't it? Nintendo has at least one amazing feature in a controller, and then at least one, but usually multiple, like mistakes or things left out or shortcomings, whatever you want to call it. I just feel like they can never just get it right, since which I'll talk about, since a certain generation, they've always one step forward, two steps back, basically. So I'm going to run down. I'm not going to start. I don't have an NES controller. I didn't feel like getting my Super Nintendo out of the box and stuff. But both those controllers, especially the Super NES, were the pinnacle of gaming controllers at the time. They were the king of the hill. They were the controller. They had the controller that all the other competition wished they had. The Genesis or Mega Drive, if you're over in Europe, but it'd be pretty late for you if you're watching this live. Had a trash D-pad, had 3 buttons, and when they added the 6th button, it was still just 3 and 3. There was no shoulder buttons, and the Super NES was the controller of its time. I don't think there's any arguing it. It was introduced shoulder buttons. You got the diamond pattern that is now standard on every controller pretty much, and it was the foundation which a lot of controllers are still built off of. So they followed that up with this bad boy right here. This is a launch day 1996 launch day controller that Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, multiple play sessions, GoldenEye, hours and hours and hours of GoldenEye. And look at this. This analog stick is still like flawless. So they come out with this. The PlayStation 1 was already out. I was not a big fan of the original PlayStation controller. I think this was the last time Nintendo's had the pinnacle controller of the generation. I don't think they've gotten close. I think this generation with the Pro controller, the Switch Pro controller, but this was the last time that they nailed a controller. And I mean, it was the most ergonomic controller. Nothing was even close. If you hold it for the D-pad, I mean, it's perfect. D-pad's great. Shoulder buttons are great. Comfortable. You had rumble, which they added later, and start button wasn't too hard to get. A and B, and then these acted as basically 4 additional buttons for any type game. And then if you hold it in the middle, I mean, you could hit start with these with this thumbstick. They added the trigger. Again, super ergonomic, super comfortable. Buttons are clicky. Shoulder buttons feel great. Once you added the rumble pack, I mean, this was the envy of all competition as far as controllers. I mean, the Atari Jaguar was garbage. The PlayStation obviously was a huge success and people loved that controller. But compared to this, once they released the DualShock, and it had the dual analogs, that was definitely a step above this. But just in general, this controller I have no complaints, honestly, other than the hard plastic is a little slippery. You had to actually blow on your thumb to get some grip sometimes. But this was the first analog controller, first analog stick, because it didn't use a rubber. This hard plastic still holds up to this day. And this was it's a great controller. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So they follow that up with the GameCube. And I know a lot of people love this controller. I'll no longer own this very controller tomorrow, unless the person don't show up. So the GameCube controller continued the idea of ergonomics. They made the shoulder buttons concaved, I guess. Super comfortable. Analog stick, your thumb just rests naturally. And same with the other buttons. So the strength of this controller is the analog stick. This is the best analog stick, which they use basically the same thing for the Wii Nunchuck. This is the best analog stick Nintendo's ever done. Doesn't click in, but I mean, it's just far as, I mean, look at this. This wasn't my launch day one, but this thing's still snappy. So I would say the highlight is the triggers being, I guess, concaved. I don't know. And the analog stick. For me, that's where, and the overall comfort, it's not perfect, but it's pretty decent. So that's, and they introduce analog triggers, and they feel really nice, and mine's still really great. You got the click, which basically become useless. I mean, they never did it again. So, and that's the thing. When I say de-evolution, they'll come up with a great idea, analog triggers that are shaped like this, and then they'll never do it again, which makes no sense. So, the shortcomings. The shortcomings, there's many. The biggest, for me personally, is, it's a toss-up, but I'm going to go with the length and girth of the grips. This controller for me, let's see if we can, like this finger here rubs on this, on this guy. I kind of cram it in between. If these were just thicker and protrude out further, it had been fine, but just, it's a little too small, a little too cramped for my hands, and the fact that this, it's hard to see, but the back of this is almost like, I wish it was out further because my fingers kind of hit on it. And then the other thing is this D-pad, this little microscopic, this little freaking, hate this D-pad. It works, it's accurate, but man, is it, if I had to play it like an actual 2D platform or something with this, I mean, it's absolute trash for that. Like, I hate this D-pad for that. It's fine for just hitting, for like Metroid Prime, for changing your visor, or Smash Brothers for taunting, but to actually play a game with that D-pad, I think is an absolute joke. I hate that D-pad. The other, I'd say the next in line is the fact they went with this stupid little nub. You got the best analog stick ever here, basically, and then you complement it with this little stupid nub. It's just unnecessary. I mean, just put the regular analog stick in there, and you, I mean, it works, but I don't know, it just doesn't, the fact that it's just a little, looks like a little nipple instead of, just give it a little bit more. I mean, that's, you could have it yellow, just give it an extra, like this dish shape, like that, instead of, it's just dumb. I don't understand it. And then I'd say the other thing I don't care for is this button layout. Obviously, they never did it again. They went back to the diamond, and they've never done this again. In theory, it's kind of cool, but in practice, I mean, that's a long distance between here and here. So if a game has you going, like, you have to press from here to here. What's up, Rakia and Gamer Talk? It's just dumb to have this at all. It is completely unnecessary. It just felt like, let's try something different just because we want to be different. We want to try to innovate. You don't need to innovate. You already had the perfect thing. Even though the N64 just had A and B and then the C buttons, it still had the diamond within the C buttons. And then, you know, you got the start button, which is, it's not the easiest to hit, and they got rid of select, whatever. I've never liked the gap there, and like I said, my fingers hit the back of this. It's just, it's not, for me, it's never been the most comfortable. The ergonomics of the shape, like, you know, from here down here, like, that's fine. It's just some of the rest of it, it's just too small for me. But so yeah, they got analog stick right, they got the analog triggers and the shape of the triggers, but then they mess up the D-pad. The thumbstick's kind of, it feels incomplete, and the button layout I think is just kind of dumb, and then the controller's just too small for my hands. So it's not a bad controller though. I mean, I would probably give it like maybe a 7 out of 10 overall. I didn't really think about that. I just kind of threw that number out. But so then they followed up with the Wii Remote and the Nunchuck, and the Nunchuck, it's not the exact same, but it continued the trend of amazing analog sticks. I mean, mine's still snappy. I liked having the little notches for straight up and angles and stuff. Very ergonomic. But, well, let's get to the rest of the... And then you had the pointer. And then this trigger, well placed. And the speaker was cool. And, you know, the buttons themselves, like the A button feels fine. So it's, I mean, great controller. It's very comfortable. I was playing Galaxy with the condom on, of course. That came standard after the initial launch at some point. And you know, you play it sideways, and you got the 1 and 2 act as the A and B from the NES, and the D-pad's small, but it's a nice D-pad. It's better than the GameCube D-pad, but it's not super ergonomic. But with this on, the sleeve on, it's not bad. I don't like some of the grip texture, whatever. So its shortcomings, and I just don't understand why do you just have A button there? I mean, you got B underneath. Why not make that Z? Why not have a B button? Why not have like A here and B on an angle, you know? I mean, it's not that hard. People could figure it out. Yeah, it looks symmetrical. But why not have A and B? I mean, you could have had the diamond right here, for Christ's sakes. You know, like, that way game developers don't have to sit there and make all these weird things like hold plus and hit this to do something because you don't have enough buttons. And then over here on the first of all, they weren't caught up with the times. They don't have a clickable thumbstick. That would have been huge for Call of Duty. And then you have these two buttons that are just like hard, like they don't feel good in the like pressing on them. And you could have had an analog trigger. You could have the concave thing, you know, for a little more comfort. Or you could have made this overall bigger and maybe had a third button, or had a, you know, maybe had a button down here. Just give, yeah, you don't want to make it complicated for grandmas, but forget, you know, grandmas. If they make that button do nothing on most of the, you know, casual games. So if it had a clickable thumbstick, maybe put an analog trigger, make both of these possibly analog. And just at least a B button up here. That way you're not like reaching down to the 1 and 2 while you're playing. Muhammad, you missed the beginning. I think the N64 was the pinnacle controller for that generation. But anyway, you got to reach down for the 1 and 2. Just put a B button up there. Like, what the fuck? And then the D-pad, you know, it's better than the GameCube controller for sure. But it's still continuing the trend of small. So yeah, I think overall it's a great controller. I enjoy playing games with it. But the lack of buttons. And God, I didn't even talk about that. Holy shit, I forgot about the GameCube. Let me get back to the GameCube real quick. I don't know if they were worried because the competition had 4 shoulder buttons, but they slapped this Z button, this spongy trash, hard to hold. If you had to hold it for like Tiger Woods or whatever, or tap it fast, just absolute spongy trash. And just put one over here. Make it a better shape, make it a better button in general, but why not have one over here? It's just stupid. I forgot. I can't believe to me, that's probably the second biggest flaw of this controller. And then you would have perfect parity with the other systems because you would have had the equal amount of buttons. So yeah, that was another big misstep for the GameCube controller. I don't understand why they keep doing these innovations and then they always fall short in some aspect. Yeah, Wiimote gave you carpal tunnel. Yeah, unless you learned like to hold it real, like I've kind of over the years I've learned to hold it real light, like a steering wheel on a car. Like I don't grip it tight like when I was young. I hold it pretty comfortably. So, but a good controller, but definitely room for improvement. And again, one step forward, motion controls, pointer, but 2 steps back with the lack of buttons and, you know, being behind on the competition. And so you don't it's harder for developers to put games on there when you don't have enough damn buttons. So then the other option on the Wii was the Pro controller. Classic controller. I didn't have the Pro version. There's nothing good about this controller other than it reminds me of the Super NES. The D-pad, I guess, is the bright spot, except mine has the same issue as my Switch Pro controller. When you press left or right, it hits up or down a lot. But you got these analog sticks where my freaking thumbs just collide. Absolute trash. The comfort isn't there. There's nothing to grip onto. You know, you reach over for these buttons that I don't think were ever used. I tried playing GoldenEye with this. Absolute garbage. It's just a cheap controller. It's $20. I know they had the Pro version, but still, this was a joke of a controller. That was felt thrown together. So then we go from Wii, we go to Wii U and gamepad. The pluses, the positives of the gamepad: great D-pad, great button, spacing, layout, ergonomics. It's comfortable for how big it is. You got the screen, worked awesome in games like Xenoblade, Mario Maker. Got fingerprints and stuff. Has awesome speakers, really good speakers. Has clickable thumbsticks finally. Decent analog sticks. They're not quite as good as I wish. This is the beginning of where they have their Nintendo and their analog sticks having less travel than the Wii and the GameCube and N64. So with Twilight Princess HD, it just didn't transfer over well. The controlling Epona was just like a pain in the ass because of the lack of precision. So I guess that's the first negative I would say with the gamepad is just not as much precision with the analog sticks. I don't mind them being both up. I got used to it. But playing like Call of Duty Black Ops 2, my muscle memory just couldn't overcome it to the point where I could be good. They had the NFC reader, plus and minus home button, power button, touchscreen. This is a great controller. The triggers are in a good place. They're the shoulder buttons and triggers are both good buttons. But I wish Nintendo didn't get away from analog triggers, because for racing games, like Need for Speed Most Wanted U, analog triggers would have been a nice addition. So, gamepad's a really good controller. I don't think, like I said, the complaints are very minimal. So then we go to the Wii U Pro controller, which I have a vinyl decal on. And comfort-wise, I mean, this is his best controller comfort-wise of the generation. Well, it depends on what generation it counts towards. I'd put it's now that I've played with the Wii Switch Pro controller and the Xbox One controller so much, this feels a little weird to me to have the thumbsticks up. But ergonomically speaking, great. And you can see where my thumb has rubbed, my finger has rubbed the decal there. Everything's placed right. D-pad's great. Love the D-pad. Clickable analog sticks. It's hard to hold this so you can see what I'm doing. Everything's in a good spot. Home button, power button, plus and minus. Everything's in a good spot. 80-hour battery life. I mean, amazing. But what it didn't have, first off, talking about shortcomings when you're talking about versus the competition, past Nintendo controllers. For past Nintendo controllers, it just doesn't have analog triggers. They've never done it again. But for the competition, you got no microphone. Wii U gamepad's got one, but they didn't put a microphone jack, so there goes your voice chat. That put it behind the curve. Just like with the gamepad, these analog sticks don't have that much travel compared to GameCube and the Wii remote and Wii nunchuck. So Twilight Princess HD is the best example I have, but even curious to play like 3D World and see if there, what range of walking, running does Mario have, because there's the run button. So just a little bit, the travel on these is a little too short. No microphone jack to put it, with the competition. No analog triggers for racing games. Those are really the biggest complaints that I have. And then just having controllers with the location of the right stick being different is just really, it's really hard for your muscle memory to go from this to the Xbox controller to the DualShock. I got it, I did it, but I could never be as good with Call of Duty Black Ops 2 as I could on the Xbox. Just the analog stick being up there. But overall, I mean, great controller, no question about it. One of their best. Yeah, you didn't use it. I mean, the gamepad's fine. I put the extended battery in the gamepad, so I actually have I get 5 to 6 hours. So they follow up the Wii U Pro controller, the Wii U gamepad, with these guys, and I have modded mine, so I actually have a D-pad. So I have to talk about the negatives for the standard version. So you get these Joy-Cons, and Nintendo wants them attached to the Switch, and as a handheld, I get that. The positives, I guess the trigger shape is decent. That's the only positive I have, honestly. I mean, plus and minus button tiny. These buttons absolutely ridiculously small. The analog stick gets in the way of the B button when I try to press it. My thumb hits the analog stick. I was saying earlier, before more people were here, I went to play Rocket League because it's free to play. And if you haven't played Rocket League, it's free to play now. And I was playing on the Switch just because it's a unified... I can play all my PC progress on the Switch now. It's a cross-platform progression system. And I couldn't even hit the ball. I couldn't do aerials. This controller is such a handicap that I couldn't even play the game that I have 1,200 hours in to the level of like a bronze player. It's just that bad. So some of the other issues, these analog sticks have even less motion than the Wii U gamepad and Pro controller, to the point where I think it's insulting to call this an analog stick. It's insulting to analog sticks. Cat's going nuts. What are you doing? Because, I mean, let's try to find a better... Like, that's it. So, I don't have Joy-Con drift per se. I have a little bit in one, because when I took it apart, I blew it out just because, and it actually caused a problem it didn't have. But you got these shoulder buttons. I mean, they're so close together. Don't like that. And if you don't have, like... I don't like having the wrist thing on, but then the rail actually catches my pinky. So analog stick, range of movement's a joke. Doesn't have a D-pad on the standard one. You have the 4 little buttons, these pain in the ass buttons. You have these tiny little hard as a rock buttons that you're playing Mario Kart. Your thumb gets so damn sore. I can't play for more than like a half hour. I couldn't with these. And then the analog stick just being right there where I need it to hit the B button. It's just, and then to go up to Y, it's like, I don't have the Switch in hand, but I know how it works. These are just trash. These are the worst controllers Nintendo ever made. They're in the same league as this guy, as the whatever piece of shit classic controller. These controllers are just, to me, unacceptable as a mainline controller for a Nintendo system. As a handheld, they're on par with other handhelds because no handhelds are comfortable. And so if you buy a Switch and you don't feel like spending another $70, that's what you're stuck with. To me, the Switch is not a $300 console. It's a $370 console, because these are just, if you're a serious gamer, I don't see how you can play games with those. I mean, even Mario Odyssey, like performing like the throw the hat, dive, bounce off your hat maneuver, it's so much harder with the Joy-Cons. So what they have, I mean, it's a $70 controller, but this right here is an amazing controller. it's way like the range of movement on the analog sticks is it's way better than the Joy-Cons. It's better than the Wii U Pro controller. Sadly, they have to develop the game for the Joy-Cons. I don't think they put any extra effort to give you that extra range of movement. Maybe they do, because it does recognize the Pro controller. But they went to the Xbox style offset analog sticks. Love it. The D-pad feels great. It's really hard to see. It feels great. I have the issue though where if I press left or right, it sometimes presses up or down. I guess they fixed that with newer versions. The ergonomics perfect. This in the Wii U Pro controller, absolutely perfect ergonomics. I do prefer the Switch's Pro controller shape now that I'm used to it. It's just, I think it's because of the analog stick placement, but it just feels right in the hand. Like it's just grips perfect. Fingers are all in the right spots. I love the shoulder buttons, even though they're not analog. L and R, I love L and R. ZR and ZL, not the best, and the fact they didn't do analog triggers again was getting to the negatives now. That's another just huge negative. I do like racing games. I don't buy a lot because Nintendo never has analog triggers. But A, B, X, Y, big buttons, absolutely love them. They feel great. The clickable thumbsticks, they didn't stop that. Plus and minus, way easier to reach on here than on this trash. Trying to reach this, trying to do the capture. It's easier on this side because there's not an analog stick in the way. I didn't even talk about the sideways Joy-Con. To me, that's absolute joke. It's not even worth talking about. So yeah, no analog triggers. And again, with keeping up with the competition, and it has gyro. I forgot to say that. That was the other negative to this. No gyro. The Wii U Pro controller had it, or the Wii U gamepad had it, but they didn't have gyro in the Pro controller. That's the biggest issue, along with the lack of analog triggers, and then just the right thumbstick not being down. Those are the three issues I have with the Wii U Pro controller. This has the gyro. Like literally the only thing it's missing, in my opinion, is the analog triggers. I could live without a headphone jack, even though if you want to have, you got 60 something million switches. There's a lot of PlayStation, Xbox guys who broke down, bought a Nintendo console, and there's features that they're used to, and you don't have that. The reason I haven't bought a racing game on the Switch is no analog triggers. So that's my number one negative. Battery life took a step back. I think it's like, is it 30 to 40 hours? I can't remember. But other than that, I mean, I said it in another Juice Opinions a while back. This generation, we have the three best controllers ever made, in my opinion. This is my Xbox One S controller. I mean, the best triggers they're better than the GameCube by far. The resistance on them's perfect, and then when you hit, it's like a rubber. It hits into a padded like rubber, so it just feels great. Nice clickable. The only negative with this controller is no gyro. So, and they don't have it in the new one, so that's a huge disappointment. This one actually has defective. All my Xbox One controllers have a defective A button where you hit it and it double hits it sometimes for Rocket League. Great D-pad though. Xbox One controller is the best Xbox controller by a mile. The DualShock 4 is the best PlayStation controller by a mile, but I think the DualSense will easily beat it. And the Switch Pro controller is the best Nintendo controller since the N64. And I think it's the best one they've ever made. If it had analog triggers, it would probably be the best controller ever made, but they just had to leave something out. They had to miss the mark on one thing. And it's just kind of, you came up with analog triggers. Why did you give up on it? Like, I don't understand that. The HD Rumble, they don't even use it in games anymore, even though it wasn't great in the Pro Controller. That was the other strong point of the Joy-Con, or maybe the only strong point, is the HD Rumble's cool, and it's more of a vibration, and I'll take the rumble and the triggers on this controller, the haptic feedback, over the HD Rumble any day of the week, every time. So Nintendo, with your next controller, just use this shape, use this layout, give us analog triggers, put a headset jack in there for either the game audio or for voice chat, and I mean, just improve the rumble. We don't need whatever the HD Rumble is in this controller. It wasn't right. So yeah, the recipe's there. They were close. They came really close with this controller. I don't have any real issues with it other than no analog triggers. I'm not going to play a racing game. So other than that, and I have a little bit of my D-pad's not super consistent. But yeah, so I mean, basically, they had Super NES and N64, and then they've kind of been experimenting and doing all this crazy stuff, whether it's motion or screen on a controller, to now we got these controllers that come off the system and you can play them sideways. But when they just when they stick to a regular controller, quote unquote, they're really good at that. Like, there's 2 in a row that they came really close to perfection on. And I hope that this is a trend continue. I mean, it's heading in the right direction, and maybe they switch successors, either the Pro controller, the standard whatever controller, the base controller, just takes this even further, and then they finally nail it again and have like the definitive controller. But I think the DualSense 5 or DualSense, not the DualSense 5, the DualSense I think is going to be the definitive controller of this 9th generation. Maybe they won't utilize it, developers won't utilize it to its fullest extent, but I really think that's going to be the controller, because I really like the DualShock 4. I like the touchpad. I like that it adds 2 buttons, and the touch stuff's not as crucial, but they got the grip. I mean, huge improvement over the DualShock 3, and so the ergonomics got way better. The analog stick placement and feel of them got way better. Buttons feel great. Their D-pad, what if you will, the 4-button D-pad thing's amazing. So there's just 3 great controllers right now, and I'm glad that Nintendo has a great controller. I wish they would just go all the way, because right now they're getting out innovated by Sony. Xbox didn't go full on with innovations, but Sony's going full forward with haptic feedbacks and the touchpad and gyro. Like, they aren't pulling things out. So that's what I hope with the future of Nintendo and their controllers. Overall, though, I mean, other than the Joy-Cons, they've all been good controllers to great controllers, and they just always seem to miss at least one thing, or at least mess something up. For me personally, and even at the time, I never liked the Z button on the GameCube controller. It was more, I would say put up, but it felt more comfortable to me back then than it does now going back to it. But I never loved the C stick. I never was the biggest fan of the C buttons on the N64, even though I said it was like their last pinnacle, like they were the king of the hill controller. I didn't mind them, but it just always felt a little weird. And then the Wii Remote, like I said, missing buttons, no clickable analog stick, and just short at least 2 buttons, I would say, that just would have made it so much better for multi-plats and other games where you wouldn't have to reach down, like I said, for the 1 and 2 buttons. And then the gamepad, if it had analog triggers, I mean, I wouldn't even really have any complaints. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's probably just like to keep costs down, but really, if you made analog triggers a standard thing, since the GameCube, it wouldn't change your costs. Like, it wouldn't be like, oh, we can save money because we don't have to invest in design the analog triggers. Like, they have to do that now because they haven't had them since 2001. So now it's something new. But if it had been in there this whole time, it'd be nothing. It wouldn't even be a cost. What's up, T-Bon and Trilinks here, Ibsters, Donnie Arts. Yeah, this is just going to be a single topic, juice opinion, something a little different. Just been thinking about this all week and just wanted to kind of get it out there, get it off my chest, and just get it out in the world. And yeah, Matt, Iwata's not there. They obviously lost some of that whatever core Nintendo unique ideas thing, but at the same time, like I said, when they just focus on a standard controller, they can come really close to perfection. I just wish they would, for whatever reason. You don't have to be different just for the sake of being different. Just have analog triggers, and then, especially on the Wii U, when it was basically equal to 360 and PS3, getting a lot of those games in that first year and a half, just have parity. You don't have to be different for the sake of being different. Just have a freaking analog triggers. I mean, seriously. And innovation for the sake of innovation, I'm kind of against that. At this point, what Sony's done with the DualSense, that's the kind of innovation. Just take your standard concept and add nice touches like the HD Rumble Nintendo did. Just kind of take Rumble to the next level. Xbox with the triggers. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't need a 4-prong controller with 3 analog sticks and all that to still be innovative. But what I would like to see, honestly, and I said this before the Switch came out, is you take this controller. As you can see, there's no buttons in the middle. You have it so I can go like this and have 2 halves in my hand. Two halves of the Pro controller. Instead of this, I want half of this in my hand and have magnets or something. Click it into place. Boom. Now you have a Pro controller. Attach it to your Switch. Now you have a super comfortable handheld. That's really the only real major innovation I hope they do with the next iteration of the Switch, is just let me click this in half and play. I think that would have been great. Obviously there's balancing issues and your thumbstick's going to be way out, towards the edge, but I think they could make it work. And other than that, if you're going to do a controller like this, just add all the things that the others have, plus your little touches, your little unique things. We don't need a Wii Remote Nunchuck innovative evolution every time. If they have an idea, like the Wii Remote Nunchuck, do that. If you don't force a whole system based around the fact that you think it's a neat idea to play a game with this. Like, I don't know who actually plays split Joy-Con, but if you ever tried it, it's absolutely painful to play this like this. I mean, I can't even imagine kids. They would get used to it and they would do it because as your kid, you don't care. But this is not a controller. This is it's a gimmick. It's stupid. It's not worth the sacrifices of not having a D-pad, which I have, obviously, because I modded it. Not having a D-pad, not having ergonomics. It wasn't worth being able to play this thing sideways. It just wasn't. I'm sorry. That's where innovation gets in the way of a controller. And Rakia, they haven't put out better Joy-Cons yet. I mean, I showed this earlier. Damn it. It's like reverse for me. Why is it so hard? Like I said, it's mirrored for me, so. I mean, that's your range of movement. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. Why does it have to be that small? Like, why can't you just put this on here? Why couldn't you just put this analog stick on the Joy-Con? I don't understand. But Anyway, I think I'm just gonna stick to what I said. I got that one topic. I wanted to get it out there. I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of people that disagree. I know there's a ton of people that love the GameCube controller. Think it's the best controller of all time. Um, and then I forgot one of its other shortcomings. It had a 6 foot controller cord. Like, are you kidding me? Like, Xbox had 8 or 9 foot. I don't remember what PlayStation 2 was. I had to pull my component cable out, pull the power cord, have my GameCube halfway between my TV and my couch so I could play the fucking thing. Because at the time, I had a 47-inch widescreen HD TV, big projection, and I sat like 11 feet away from it. So maybe 10 feet. I had to pull the GameCube way out, put it on a hard surface so it wasn't sitting on carpet, and until the Wavebird came out. And so that was another shortcoming. So they just always make, in my opinion, I think every controller except the Wii U gamepad and probably the Switch Pro controller. All the other ones had at least 2 errors, if not more. So what'd you guys think? What's your favorite Nintendo controller? Which one do you think has the most shortcomings or most flaws? Which one, do you have one that you despise, or are they all pretty good? Just leave the comments below, because like I said earlier, I meant for this mostly for the re-upload because of this nature of the topic, and less about, interacting with you guys throughout and hearing your thoughts. So, yeah, just if you're here now, just if you got thoughts, feel free to type them when the video's up on YouTube. If you want, hit the like button, and yeah, let me know what you think of this format versus just an hour and a half plus of. I mean, even though I went 46 minutes, let me know what you think. So until next time, we'll see you then. Peace.